Tech Sideline is presented by First Bank and Trust Company, a nationally ranked community-focused bank with over 30 locations throughout Virginia, Northeast Tennessee, and North Carolina. Who you choose to bank with can make all the difference. Visit firstbank.com to learn more. What's going on, Hokies fans? Our big-time Hokie Hi Spring Weekend is just around the corner. Diamond Sports just keep on winning. We got house settlements being conducted, and we got Virginia Tech football almost to that spring game point. And on top of it, we got basketball portal commitments. We're literally talking about it all here on the Tech Sideline podcast. Episode 418 underway after this. And we're coming at you on Wednesday, April 9th, 2025 from our high-tech studio right here at the Virginia Tech Corporate Research Center. Remember to like, refer the show to a friend, and subscribe as always. I'm your host, Giovanni Heater. To my right, our lead analyst and columnist, Mr. Chris Coleman. Across the way, senior staff writer Andy Bitter. And in the fourth chair, our managing editor, David Cunningham. Producing the show behind the scenes, as always, Mr. Nick Brown, the mustache man. Guys, we're going to start with Diamond Sports today because they are just on an absolute heater. See what I did there? So Virginia Tech softball yesterday, big time win over Charlotte, 12-3 run rule. Why it's big time? It's because, first of all, they had lost the previous three in the series all time against the 49ers, and it's the 14th consecutive victory for Virginia Tech. They're red hot in every way. This comes off the heels of a run rule, two-run rule, 3-game sweep over NC State, outscoring the Wolfpack 23-2 last weekend in Raleigh. David, the softball team, Bree Peck. How about you tell us a little bit about all that?
Bree Peck broke the home run record, most home runs in a career, and broke the RBI record, most in a career, in the same game. She hit 3 home runs yesterday. And as we were talking about before we came on, Gio, until she hit a home run over the weekend against NC State, she had gone since mid-February without going yards. So big game for her, obviously, historic game. But this team is red hot right now. Louisville, Stanford, NC State. I mean, Hokies continue to play well. I thought one of the biggest things, some really good reporting from Chip Grubb and Sam Mostow this weekend, just on the softball team's ability to overcome adversity. They were dealing with food poisoning, a bunch of the team, and were without 1 or 2 key players this weekend, and were shifting players around, and they still, they beat NC State 10-0 on Sunday. This is a team that is 33-5, which is pretty ridiculous. I think this is honestly, maybe this might be crazy to say, but this is, I feel like, one of the better teams Pete DeMoore has had here at Virginia Tech, and they're playing really well right now.
Yeah, they're the perfect mix of being able to do a little bit of everything. Very well-rounded. They can hit. They can pitch.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but they have the longest winning streak in the country. At least
second longest.
Second longest.
Most among Power 5.
Most among Power 4. Okay.
Marist has, at least yesterday, going into yesterday, had a 20-game winning streak.
Okay.
I don't know if they have lost since, but yesterday was the second longest active. Virginia Tech softball, they got Notre Dame this weekend, so you can catch them at TSP, part of the spring weekend, 6 p.m. on Friday, then 2 o'clock on Saturday, and then again 6 p.m. on Sunday, which means that's going to be a TV game. Poor Notre Dame. They got to turn around, and instead of the getaway game being at noon like it normally is on Sunday, they got to wait till 6 p.m. before they...
So why's the softball game and the baseball game also in the middle of the spring game?
Yes, at 1.
They moved it up. They moved the baseball game up.
The baseball game takes 4 hours. You're going to have people leaving the baseball game in the 5th inning to go to the baseball.
Well, when we had Chef
the spring game isn't even going to be televised. Why don't they just play the spring game at noon and then spread those other games out where everybody can go to all of them?
Yeah, it is unfortunate that they kind of all pile onto each other like that.
Well, fortunately, it will be cold out, so
that's true. That's true. Yeah,
not the ideal weather for the game.
Yeah, high of 48, I believe, on Saturday.
Yeah, I'm looking at it now. It's gonna be up to 50. So.
Ooh.
How about Virginia Tech baseball? 2-1 this past weekend. Took care of business on the road at Notre Dame in South Bend. Virginia Tech, they sputtered for a hot second there, and then they were kind of able to recollect this past weekend. You would have liked to win that midweek over Radford, but they seem to be, back to themselves, if you will.
I think they got big innings from some freshman arms over the weekend. And, not Notre Dame's not a good team, don't get me wrong, but anytime you can go on the road in what 38-degree weather, and win with a couple freshmen on the mound, you've got to consider that a good weekend. So the Hokies are in pretty good position right now. Last year, when they struggled down the stretch, the scheduling was so unbalanced. They played a bunch of awful teams at the beginning of the season, and then it seems like the second half of their ACC schedule was just top 15 team after top 15 team. This year, everything's a little more balanced, so I would expect more balance from start to finish. Just got to close out strong and stay above 500 in the league. Easier said than done because it's a tough league, but off to a good start.
Doesn't this seem like kind of where they are every year? And then it becomes crucial down the stretch.
Well, last year they got off to the best start in Tech history and then didn't make the NCAA tournament.
Right.
Like they were ranked 11th in the country.
Yeah.
It's coming down the stretch.
Yes. Generally, yes, they're right. They're in the middle of the pack, and then what happens towards the end decides things. And generally, their pitching depth doesn't hold up.
Well, and injuries a lot of times they're pretty healthy for the most part right now. Knock on wood. Gio, I thought they did not play well at all against Radford last week in the midweek. I mean, John Sheff said it was one of maybe the worst game his team has ever had in his time at Virginia Tech. And then they lost the Friday game to Notre Dame. And then Jake Marciano was terrific on Saturday. They went 6-1. And then Logan Eisenreich kind of started things off well on Sunday, and they went 11-5. So their ability to bounce back after, of course, winning the series or sweeping Wake Forest, top 20 team the weekend prior. If they can continue to stack it together, and it seems like they're getting timely hits at the right moments, and some of the young arms, like Chris mentioned, are coming along. This is a team that has potential postseason aspirations the way they're playing right now.
Yeah, and when I checked yesterday, they're 35th in the RPI. That gets you into the NCAA tournament, assuming you take care of business with your conference record and things like that.
The big piece that they're missing right now, Garrett Michelle went down in that second game in Winston-Salem against Wake Forest, and he still has not returned. So didn't play the last game against Wake, didn't play against Radford, didn't play at all this past weekend in South Bend against Notre Dame. So we'll see if they get Garrett Michelle back. That's their starting first baseman. For those that don't know, missed most of last season with a broken wrist, but when he's in, he can swing it. Big power hitter for them. So we'll see how that all plays out. Huge week coming up for Virginia Tech baseball because they face number 20 Troy. That's today, 6 p.m. English Field, and then number 9 Florida State coming to town this weekend. Chris, what do you think they have to do to bolster the RPI this weekend? You think if you go even just 2-2, but if you could go 3-1, that's a huge W.
Oh, that's huge. With 4 ranked teams. Now, how odd is it to have a midweek game in April against a ranked team?
It
doesn't happen very often. So you got Troy coming into town tonight. Hokies obviously struggled with their midweek game last week. Pitching's got to hold up. I think they'll hit well enough generally. Pitching's got to hold up over the course of those 4 games. But yeah, like you said, even if they go 2-2 over that stretch, that's not going to hurt it's going to help their strength of schedule. Shouldn't hurt their RPI any at all. So I'd still like to say they'd be in pretty good shape coming out of that if they go 2-2.
You'd almost it also depends what recipe that 2-2 is, but I'd take a loss to Troy and 1 loss to Florida State if it means the 2 wins were against Florida State and you won the series.
Right, and because that means you continue to improve your conference record. You'd be 4 games above 500 in conference, and they're 3 games up right now?
Yeah.
So that would, I agree. Like if I was going to take 2 or 4, I would say make the 2 wins against Florida State.
Yeah, well, exciting weekend nevertheless. So one last time, let's run down the slate for you, what to expect. Hokie Hi Weekend in Blacksburg. Friday, softball against Notre Dame and baseball against Florida State, both at 6 p.m. Saturday, you got the Run In Remembrance, that's at 9 a.m. You got lacrosse against number 11 Syracuse at noon. You got baseball against Florida State at 1 p.m. You got softball against Notre Dame at 2 p.m. and you got the spring game at 3 p.m. So I guess pick your poison at that point on Saturday. And then on Sunday, you have baseball against Florida State. That's at noon. Softball against Notre Dame. That's at 6. And the Masters is going on. So Nick's going to do none of it. He's going to sit at home, and he's going to watch the Masters. So,
not a bad plan.
Not a bad plan at all.
That midday Masters nap on Sunday is like It's like the best nap of the year.
There you go. There you go. Midday Masters nap. Maybe we'll all have to take a page out of that book. All right, let's talk about these House settlement hearings. Andy, Chris, David, let's kind of break this thing down for everybody. What exactly is going on? Because a lot of our listeners may be novice to this.
Andy?
Yeah, I honestly have not paid that close attention to it. I'm just waiting for them to finalize this thing. It feels like there's a hang up over roster limits. I think the judge wants to grandfather in some of the athletes that might get cut from this thing, and these are we're talking about mostly Olympic sports type stuff where they're going to impose roster limits, and that means they're going to reduce the number of scholarship opportunities in some sports. Some will actually have more, and some probably will have less in this whole thing. So I think there's a lot of motions filed by people that potentially could lose out on scholarship situations in this thing, in this new world order that's coming. So it seems like the judge has sort of been open to sort of grandfathering in old situations, sort of easing in the roster restrictions instead of just going, here's what it is in year one. But it doesn't sound like this is a sticking point that's going to stop this whole thing from happening. It feels like the train is too far down the tracks at this point for them to stop this whole thing.
Seems that way. I think the NCAA has had issues with that recently. You remember COVID when they gave all the athletes an extra year of eligibility, and thus they bumped the roster limits up for a year. But then after 1 year, they were like, okay, now we're back to normal roster limits. But by the way, everybody still has a COVID year.
Right.
Instead of
taking away opportunities from a bunch of incoming freshmen.
Exactly
probably.
right. So instead of saying, well, 4 years from now, we're going to get back down to the 85-man limit. We're going to go from 95 to 92 to 88 down to 85, whatever, slowly and gradually. They just did it all at once, and that didn't make any sense at the time. So, I think the judge probably has a point here. I'm certainly not an expert in any legal matters or anything like that. But like Andy said, schools have been planning as if House is going to be passed. Like they've been fully expecting it to be passed. There might be some tweaks to it here and there. We'll see. When is the next hearing?
I mean, it's currently going on. It's going on now, so I don't know. They're hearing motions and people arguing against the thing. And
okay, I didn't know if it was daily.
Trying to iron out some of the smaller details in this the whole thing. But I feel like the larger structure of it is practically in place, and that's why a lot of these ADs are going forward with the assumption that July 1 is when they're going to have to essentially have a payroll on the staff, a new $20.5 million line item on the budget, which, good luck with that, figuring that out on a yearly basis, but that's going to be the new reality.
Yeah, and as far as the roster limit stuff goes, like, I don't know how much of an impact that will have, because I think a lot of, certainly not all, but a lot of the athletes, they might have already, transferred and said, I'm not going to have a spot here anymore, so they just portaled out in the winter or something like that. I don't know. I'm sure some did and some didn't. But obviously it's going to have an effect on some.
What you got, David?
One of the ripple effects of this, of course, is NIL aspect of it, right? And because the clearinghouse seemingly will go into effect. And I think you're going to see it a lot in basketball. You already are a little bit, but in this offseason transfer portal window, especially maybe in the spring football portal window. We know it's not as active as the winter one, but you might see some kids try to transfer and try to kind of get the most money they can before this before the transfer the clearinghouse goes into effect, where they're kind of capped, so to speak, on NIL. And we've talked about that before, but it's going to be really, really interesting. I know there are, it seems like there are some basketball programs that are trying to rush stuff through because they're, players are trying to get the most money before they're kind of capped, so to speak.
Sure. Well, as always, Tech Sideline is presented by First Bank and Trust Company. Today's TSL podcast also brought to you by the Hokie Way. The Hokie Way's 2025 auction starts on Tuesday, April 1st. Be sure to check it out and bid on over 100 items and experiences. The proceeds benefit Hokie's NIL. Visit thehokieway.org to learn more, register, and bid. We'll drop that link down in the YouTube description. All right, let's talk a little bit of spring football, gentlemen. The headliner so so far in spring football has been that Brent Pry announced he is shutting down quarterback Kyron Drones for the spring. He will undergo a minor medical procedure, is what they're calling it. How minor is it really? And how much damage could this do to Kyron's development this spring, especially with the new OC in town?
It's a really good question. He's gotten about half of spring ball. About half. I'm not worried about, or not too worried about the system part of it, because he's still in there studying film. He's a veteran player. I don't think, as far as like knowledge of the system, picking it up, I don't think that's going to be an issue. Now, if there's anything from a technique standpoint that Montgomery was working with him on to make him more accurate, particularly on the deep ball, he's missing valuable time as far as that's concerned. And if he was feeling pain in the first half of spring practice, then was he able to translate those new techniques works to the field, or was he favoring one leg, right? As far as the injury goes, I think it's how minor is the surgery? We don't know. We know he still hasn't had the surgery because he was at practice on Tuesday. Is he not going to have the surgery until after exams? Because he's having the surgery out of state is what it seems like. So does he leave during the middle of the semester and have surgery? I don't know how many in-person classes he has. If he doesn't have the surgery till after exams, and Price targeting a mid-June return date, that would be indicative of like a legit minor surgery where it's you're just cleaning up a meniscus or something like that. But if he's actually going to have surgery soon, and then he's out for 2 months, basically, that would indicate something a little more serious than minor, but certainly not something that's extremely serious, like reconstructive knee surgery. The big thing for me is, like we talked on the podcast back in November and December, that we were hearing he was going to have surgery. And we don't know for a fact that this is the same injury, but considering he had 3 different injuries last year, I think you can put 2 and 2 together and probably assume that that's the case. Why wasn't this taken care of in December and January? If it had been taken care of then, when it was thought that it was going to need to be taken care of, then he would be available. We're not having this conversation today. And that's what I was expecting to happen, actually. I didn't think he was going to be able to go through spring ball because I thought he was going to have surgery. Then when it didn't happen, I'm like, well, I guess everything healed better than they thought it was, or maybe the injury wasn't as bad as they thought it was, or injuries. But
it obviously flared back up, if that's the case.
Yeah, right. So, but at any rate, it's something that I think probably should have been handled back then. If we were talking about it in November, we're still talking about it in mid-April. That probably shouldn't be happening. But the most important thing is get it fixed. So he's 100% in the fall.
Sure.
Well, here's the thing: we don't know what it is. We don't know what he was dealing with other than soreness, and we don't know what the procedure is. So it's tough.
Right,
it's tough to come up with.
Like,
I think that the fan base's collective reaction on this is just reactive to Brent Pry's policy with injuries, which is, to not say anything about them, essentially. And, that's his right. He doesn't have to. This isn't the NFL with injury reports or anything like this. And believe me, all these people are like, oh, I believe HIPAA and FERPA prevent. It doesn't. It does not apply to football coaches in this whole situation. So there's a whole, process for that they're allowed to talk about injuries with this stuff. But again, they don't need to tell us. And that's sort of Brent Pry's prerogative. He doesn't like to say anything about injuries. I'm with Chris. I thought that, I think people are like, oh my gosh, he's missing half of the spring. It's like, I thought he was going to miss all of the spring. I thought that they would do something after the season and that he would be out all of the spring. So the fact that he got half of spring practice and all of the winter workouts in, I feel like that was actually kind of beneficial.
Do you think that part was by design at all?
I don't know if it was by design or if it was just like, he had a bunch of different ailments he was dealing with last season. It didn't sound like it was a tear or anything with it. It was like, an MCL, sprain, turf toe, and a stress fracture. Yeah. I mean, you give that enough rest, those things can heal on their own. And if you would, not have surgery, I think that would be the preferable route in this whole thing. Nobody wants to go under the knife if they don't have to in this situation. And it turns out that I guess something was sore enough that they had to go in and do a procedure. So, I'll take Brent Pry at his word on this. It sounds like it's minor. If he says he's going to be back by early June, mid-June, we'll see. I'll trust him that that's going to actually be the case. If it's not, then it's maybe another case of them, not exactly being truthful about injuries. But for now, I'll trust the coach that he's saying that this is when the guy's going to be back. And if that's the case, it sounds pretty minor. You're missing half a spring. It's not the end of the world. I mean, it's spring ball. You're out there. You're watching reps. You're in meetings anyway. You got most of the reps in the first half of spring ball. Missing the spring game, I can't imagine Kyron was going to do a ton in the spring game anyway. The important part is put your QB1 in bubble wrap right now. You don't want him to be injured. You saw what happened last year when he had to deal with injuries. The offense was not quite the same. Your quarterback is rotating all the time. That's not an ideal situation. You want to have Kyron Drones healthy for the season. I think this is an aim to do that. And, if this is the best medical course of action, then, it's probably a good thing.
Yeah, and I think another thing that has caused some of the negative reaction to this is how the injury was handled last year. Like, they played him injured against Georgia Tech, and they played him injured against Clemson. And
well, the Clemson one was ridiculous.
Right, yeah, right. So
Georgia
I think
Tech, he could still kind of move and make plays. Clemson is just like, first quarter, you're like, he can't do anything. Right. And Tootin can't do anything. Why are these guys in the game if they can't do anything?
Exactly. So I think that how they've handled some injuries in the past, even if you go back to Wells, when they just trot him out there for warm-ups and practice him in front of the media.
That was a charade.
That was a charade, right. So how they've handled injuries in the past has been a little bit questionable, we'll say. So I think that part of that is a reason for some of the negative reactions too. Now, I want to speak personally about Drones. Now, he's a guy who played hurt last year, and I see some comments. Oh, he's made of glass. Well, he's not made of glass. He powered through injuries last year like nobody's business, as well as anybody could.
I think they're thrown off by the fact that he's a tank,
right,
and can absorb a lot of punishment.
Right, that's exactly right. So he's been nothing but a model citizen through all of this, in my opinion. I just wish it had been fixed a little bit earlier, because if it was truly minor, like, they could have done this like the week after the UVA game, and then I think he would have been ready for spring practice. As opposed to, like, if they'd waited till January, then he probably misses spring or most of it. Now, it's most important that, he's healthy for the summer and August and all that. But I do think that the timetable could have been pushed up.
Well, I'll say this. You look at him at practice, he's walking around fine.
Yeah.
It's not like he has a brace on or something like that. It's like an obvious, like, oh my gosh, his knee is messed up or something like that. Like, he's walking around okay, no braces or anything like that. So it could be something minor like this.
That's why I was surprised.
Yeah.
When it came out.
And this goes back to our stat. I've said this: the last quarterback to start double-digit games in back-to-back seasons for the Hokies is still Logan Thomas.
That's crazy.
2012 and 13. Drones the last two seasons, 11 and 9 last year. So he didn't quite get there. So Brewer 13, Brewer 7, Evans 14, Jackson 13, Willis 10, Hooker 8, Hooker 7, Burmeister 12, Wells 11, Drones 11, and then 9. He was so close to getting the double-digit starts in a row.
So what about total starts for a career?
He's up to 20 now.
And Brewer also had 20?
Brewer had 20, so he will pass Michael Brewer for most starts by a quarterback.
We think he will.
Likely.
We hope he will.
Likely will pass Michael Brewer for most starts by a quarterback since Logan Thomas was a 3-year starter here.
Interesting. What you got over there, David?
Chris mentioned the way they've kind of handled it. Also, keep in mind what they said last Tuesday when Kyron wasn't at practice.
Right.
They described it as load management. Right.
Oh, he's just being rested.
And so like as a fan, I'm sure you're like, what the heck's actually going on?
Right.
To be fair, perhaps they didn't know that he was going to have surgery at that point.
That's possible.
Perhaps he's sore after this scrimmage. If you're sore, then you rest a guy. That technically that's load management. Maybe they're stretching the definition of that whole thing, but they probably knew there were larger problems at that point. But I don't know. Everybody's being super secretive about this. I assume everybody saw the Shane Beamer clip the other day about him going off in the media about, oh, this guy's not a third-team guard. You're saying he's a third-team guard. It's like, we don't have a first team, second team, third team. We have an A group and a B group and a C group. It's like, I think you just described first, second, and third team there, Shane. I don't know why it seems like these football coaches are losing their minds over trying to be so secretive about everything.
The more money they make, the more paranoid they get.
Yeah, I joke that in the first quarter of the Virginia Tech South Carolina game, they're just going to trade first down punts for the entire first quarter because they don't want to give away too much of their game plan to the other team. But it seems like this matchup in particular is maybe causing both of these coaching staffs to lose their minds in terms of secrecy.
Definitely agree with that. Neither party wants to lose this game.
No, not at all.
In the worst way.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Here's a trivia for you that I actually just learned yesterday from Carter Hill. So it'll be the first time that Shane Beamer coaches against Virginia Tech. There would have been one other time. What was it?
Georgia Tech, the Lightning game.
That's right.
The Lightning game.
Right.
He was a GA.
Yeah.
Was it George O'Leary's staff?
That's right.
Yep, indeed.
I was at that game.
Game never happened.
Who were you?
I was at that game. Yeah. In the crowd. It was not pleasant.
That sounds a little terrifying.
What was that? 2000?
2000.
2000?
I'm very interested. It's a spring game, so again, you take it with a grain of salt. But this will be like the first real time we'll get to see Davi Belfort in action, and Pop Watson, right? He spoke with us yesterday, media, just about a lot about what it's been like since he played so much at the end of the year. People want to see Pop. They're going to get Pop in the spring game. And Belfort, it seems like he's really good as a runner right now. Probably said he still needs to improve a little bit as a passer, but I'm kind of curious to just kind of get a better sense of both of those guys, especially the latter in the spring game on Saturday.
Also, those young guys, AJ Brand, Keldon Ryan, see what they've got out there. I mean, you never know. I mean, a couple years ago, Hendon Hooker was an early enrollee, and he went out there and showed out in the spring game. I think he was like 10 for 10 or something like that. They had a really good spring game. And you're like, oh, take note of this guy. So you never know with these things till they get out in the field. And sometimes, I know it's not a game situation, but it is in the stadium. It is with fans in the stands. So it does change things a little bit from just being a regular scrimmage when you're out there on the practice field.
I would expect Pop and Davi to get the whole first half, and then the second half, those freshmen to get thrown into the mix. That's what I would expect. Because Pry said they want the first half to be like a game, so you play your guys who have a chance to play in an actual game, and then the second half is going to be more, well, let's just get out of here as quickly as possible and avoid injuries.
Do they go into the locker room at halftime? Is there like an actual break in the middle?
It's like a short break.
They do awards. They do spring awards, like newcomer of the spring and most improved and all that.
Yeah. Okay. I do remember that now that you say that. Well, we have a spring game format. It's going to be very similar to last year. The teams will be evenly split, so that's something to keep an eye out for. It's going to look pretty much the same as it has recently. Anything standing out at practice to you guys at all? I know they don't show you much.
We have still not seen an 11-on-11 snap yet.
Nope.
And probably won't.
First 11-on-11 we'll see is at the spring game.
Yeah. Right. And the second we'll see will be the South Carolina game. We won't see any in August either, I can guarantee you.
Probably not. They'll probably even be more secretive at that point.
No
doubt. I don't know. It's practice. It's tough to tell. It feels like they do have a lot of defensive linemen in this thing, and it kind of be interesting what they're doing there with sort of like 3 down guys and one guy sort of a stand-up rusher. Some injuries right now. Ben Bell has been nicked up, I think, since the last scrimmage, so we didn't see him out there. But it was like sort of, the APR role last year where you saw him kind of stand up as a rusher and move around the line a little bit. I think that might be more of a permanent feature of this scheme going forward than it was in the past. So, obviously they're not doing all the stuff that they're going to do when we're out there, but I think the base stuff, you might be able to see a little bit of that in the spring games. Like, okay, here's sort of what they're doing with the perhaps being able to shift into odd man fronts a little bit. I think the nickel spot is more of a full-time position than what it was previously. They don't really have that star position, is my best guess right now. So I'm kind of eager to see that on Saturdays. Like, what is sort of the base formation they put out there, offensively and defensively? And we're not going to see all the different things they do with it, but I think you get a sense kind of what this defense is like.
Yeah, they have 18 defensive linemen listed on their roster. Now, they don't split them into defensive ends or tackles or whatever. But we can, we know James Jajonkam's going to be like a defensive end type. He's 6'2", 258. We also know that Ben Bell is going to play on the edge as like a defensive end type. Well, he's 6'1", 235, which is more linebacker size. My best guess is that those are going to be 2 different roles. They're both going to be lined up on the end, so to speak, but they're going to be much different roles. Like, I think Ben Bell's going to be standing up quite a bit. And even if you throw it down to defensive tackle, you've got Jazari Priester, 6'5", 312. You've also got Arius Nash, 6 foot, 278. Again, I think those defensive tackle roles, you might even see 2 different roles in that.
Maybe more of like a true nose tackle.
It could be with another guy playing, you know, a completely different technique. The other defensive tackle may be playing between the tackle and the guard. We're all just guessing at this point. Not that anyone would do this, but, you know, I'm sure some people will, you know, take some pictures during the spring game of exactly what the formation looks like. I mean, I certainly won't be doing that, but other people might.
How many minions do you think Shane will have in attendance?
That's a great question. I bet if you go through, like,
he's probably got some connections in Blacksburg.
He probably does. I bet if you go through the credit card transactions for spring game tickets sold, you might find a few from Columbia, South Carolina.
Interesting.
Is Frank Beamer allowed in the stadium in the spring game? It's like, I don't know. This guy might be a spy for the other team now.
When is South Carolina?
I was just wondering that.
What is South Carolina spring game? They've already played theirs.
I'm not sure.
Well, if he's doing interviews, it's probably this week. Frank will probably be at their spring. But will Shane let him in there? Is he going to be spying for Virginia Tech?
Frank Beamer, double agent.
Frank's just going to go to the lake this weekend.
What you got over there, Dave?
No, yeah, I thought what Andy said about just Tech being multiple and, like, we're not really sure, but this might be a good indicator. Just the way they use the defensive linemen, we saw that a little bit in practice. It's, I think, going to be very interesting. But I think the offense is still the real unknown. Like, how, and we won't get to see Kyron Drones in that offense. So to Chris's point, you know, and Andy's point, we're probably not going to have a real good sense until August 31st. But the spring game is a good opportunity, I think, to see a lot of these newcomers in action. And Andy's written about, you know, some of these new defensive ends and Giancum and Bell and some of the safeties, and getting an opportunity to kind of see them, you know, albeit in a spring game, basically a glorified scrimmage, but you know, like, they've got a lot of new faces, especially like in the secondary. Like, how do those guys shake out? It seems like they might play 3 safeties sometimes. And how does that look? And Isaiah Brown Murray, like Andy said, it seems like the nickel is going to be on the field a lot. So it'll be fun to get a better sense. And, like, when we talk next week on this podcast about just, hey, here are our reactions to the spring game, there can be a lot of new things, I think, just between new players and new looks. So I'm very interested to kind of just see what our overall takeaways are next week.
To answer everybody's question, South Carolina plays its spring game Friday, April 18th, and it's at night. It's at night, 7:30 p.m. on a Friday night. So not this week. So, Chris, one more thing on spring football.
I don't hate that. That'd be horrible for tailgating. Yeah. For people trying to get to that on a Friday night.
Well, and then you could have your spring weekend, and then you could just make Saturday about softball, baseball, and all that, and pack English for that baseball. That's right. That baseball.
But if people don't care, if people care more about the football thing, you gotta.
Well, but you come on Friday. It's tough. You'd have to take the day off.
Well, we don't even know if South Carolina has home games that weekend. But as far as, like,
well, I'm just saying, if you try to apply that to Virginia Tech, it's like you want the main event to be on Saturday because that's what people want to come out and tailgate for $25 a car now, apparently.
Yeah.
But you know, that's what people want to come out to do, is enjoy a football type atmosphere. I think the other stuff is nice. It's sort of secondary. It's an add-on to the football experience. People want to come to the football game, they want to tailgate and experience that, and then if you know, they can go over to the other. I'm sure I'm not speaking for everybody. There's some people that come in for specifically baseball or softball and stuff like that. But if you do it on Friday, it's like, well, how do you tailgate before that? That'd be really awkward. How do you get off work to come down for that? The more I think about that, I wouldn't like a Friday night.
As far as the spring game goes, if Pry basically himself is saying, we're not going to treat the second half of the spring game seriously, then you go watch the first half of the spring game, and then you go to the softball game or the baseball game or whatever.
It's already going to be over by then. That's the problem.
If you're treating the first half of the spring game seriously, then you're probably taking it a little bit too serious out there.
Did you read what he said yesterday? He literally said, we're going to keep it vanilla.
Yeah.
And that's something that you've joked. I mean, you've joked about. Like, of course, you keep it vanilla, but like he just like, Like,
Of course they're going to keep it vanilla. Like, how can it not be vanilla when your quarterbacks don't get tackled? Like, let's say Kyron Drones was, even if he was 100% healthy and playing in this game, it's going to be vanilla to a certain extent because a big part of the offense is him running over people. And you're not doing that in a spring game.
They should do, last thing I'll say about it, they should do softball at noon, softball and lacrosse at noon, pick your poison there, baseball at 2, because softball games are pretty quick.
Yeah, they are.
They'll be done in about 2 hours. Baseball at 2, and then spring game at 6. That's what they should do.
You've turned the spring game into a deadline situation. What is wrong with you? No.
It's the primetime slot.
The spring game should start at noon, and everything else should be scheduled around that. Do it in the middle of the day.
Well, what they shouldn't have
Night
done is
baseball.
stacked them all at the same time, roughly within an hour of each other.
I think we can agree 4 o'clock.
I'm just happy that we still have a spring game.
The absolute latest they should
10
do
years
this-
from now, I wouldn't be shocked if we don't.
The absolute latest they should do the spring game is 2 o'clock. Like, that's my opinion. It should be a daytime event. It should be early. Like, you never know what the weather's going to be like. Take advantage of the daylight and be out there in the nice weather. 4 o'clock seems a little late.
Yeah, once you get started,
Especially when there's no reason for it with the TV window. It's not even being broadcast live or anything.
I thought it's at 3. It's at 4?
Is it 3?
It's at 3.
It's at 3.
Sorry, 3 o'clock. I don't want to misinform our reader. 3 o'clock feels late.
it's not going to be an issue this Saturday, but the later you start the spring game this time of year, the more of a chance you run into afternoon thunderstorms and things like that. That has been an issue before, if we remember correctly.
At the spring game?
Yeah.
Well, they canceled that one
I was about to
year.
walk into the stadium and boom, couldn't go into the stadium and then no spring game at all.
Last thing. Oh, what you got, David?
Well, on the spring game, I did think it was interesting what Pry said about yesterday about just like coaches have talked about it across the country. Just like what Pry said, it was Virginia Tech's choice to not televise the spring game, and part of it is, coaches are all being secretive now about so many things. But in terms of like, if you have guys enter the portal, what you don't want is people to be able to go to your spring game and watch film of it. Like Pry literally said, like he's like, if this guy, we're recruiting this guy and he played in the spring game, I'm gonna go watch to see how he played. So it's like it all compounds itself and like.
No, wait a second now. He says if they go in the portal, we don't want people watching tape of the spring game. If he's in the portal, who cares?
Well, the portal's not even open.
Right. I mean, they're not coming out and saying it, but they don't want like tampering or anything like that. But come on now, that's not going to stop it.
Right.
Like I've seen some of these guys go in the portal and they'll like put practice video clips on Twitter. Like, you think they don't have access to that stuff if they don't want that to get out there? If these players feel like they have some sort of value or their agents are pushing them to enter the portal in some situation, they'll do it. They'll find a way to get the word out there regardless of whether you play in the spring game. It's unneeded paranoia from these football coaches who are, I think some of them are losing the plot in this whole thing. And they've convinced themselves that this needs to be top secret. Nobody can see anything. And I think it's just a level of absurdity that I think they don't quite realize right now.
What cracks me up is when people go in the portal with a do not contact tag, but it's not a situation. It's one thing if like Quadir Copeland at McNeese State now going to NC State, right? Like he was probably going to follow his head coach. Will Wade gets the head coaching job at NC State. Anyone could have seen the writing on the wall with that. But these guys that don't have those, specific connections where a coach is going somewhere and they enter with a do not contact, and it's like, well, clearly there's conversations being taken, that are taking place behind the scenes.
A lot of times that's true, and sometimes it just means don't contact me, contact my agent. Because there's more and more of them having actual agents these days. But yes, in a lot of cases, it also means, I already know where I'm going because I've been talking to the other team for a month before I even, That's the way it goes.
Well, and I've never, from the sound of it, like, it'd be an interesting thing to ask a player who, once you enter the portal, but I feel like it's something where like you enter your name in the portal and then anybody can go get your contact information and anybody can contact you. Like, can you imagine your phone blowing up by?
It's like a piranha feed-eating fest.
Oh, yeah. Like,
once you go in there.
Like if you play at Virginia Tech and you think you can play at the Power 4 level, like why would you want some mid-majors blowing up your phone? You know what I mean?
I don't know that they would.
Maybe not. I
think
don't
they know where
I don't
they
know.
stand, what they can offer.
Well, here's the thing: is like players could be like, "Oh, I don't want to be contacted by tons of people." But how many times do you talk to players like, "Man, this coach was the first one who reached out." Like that's why these coaches would be so overzealous to reach out. Is because there's, I'll say it again. There's 2 straight podcasts. If you ain't first, you're last. Like you got to be in there right away to get onto this thing.
See,
the wisdom of Ricky Bobby, it goes through every podcast. The through line to every podcast here.
Do you know what's the easiest way to be first? To tamper.
To tamper, yeah, it works.
That's good.
Well, I mean, you guys remember? I think I brought this up before. You guys remember what Mike Young said mid-year? He said this in January that there was like a day he did Tech Talk Live, and he's like, "Yeah, I was contacted by like 3 agents today about, just a normal day about guys that are going to be in the portal at the end of the year. Like all the agents are the ones doing the contacting before the portal opens, so it's like."
They got to figure that out.
Schools can't technically contact the players then. Not saying they don't. That would be tampering. It probably happens. But a lot of times you can just contact the agent now. So, yeah, it's gotten out of hand.
See, the agent thing's interesting because I had interpreted the do not contact is I was pretty sure the athlete has to, or the athlete's agent has to reach out to what schools they are interested in. But well, I guess I don't know. I guess I'm incorrect on that.
I think
that was the case in the past before agents were like allowed.
Sure.
Like in the past, I think like Georgia Amore when she goes in the transfer portal and has a do not contact tag. Like agents have become a bigger part, and so like before it's like, okay, don't talk to me. I'm gonna reach out and you know what I mean? So yes, you're not far off.
Well, everybody needs a GM and everybody needs a legit agent. David, you're a soccer fan like me. Technically, it's illegal for managers, and I mean like GMs of a soccer team, to have contact with players before the transfer window. It happens all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, if it doesn't, these guys wouldn't be doing their jobs. But the contact there is between the agent and the GM. It's not like a head coach getting a call from some street agent during the middle of the season saying, "Are you interested in signing my player?" There's an organized process to it, even if it technically is against the rules.
Well, I mean,
right now, there's no organized process to it here.
Yeah.
NBA, NFL the same way.
Yes.
Like free agency opens and somebody signs at 12:01.
Right.
You negotiated that whole thing in 1 minute.
Sure.
Like, come on now. No, this was done well in advance.
Exactly.
Structure.
Yeah, very true. All right, well, we're talking about this portal and everything. The Hokies do have some new commitments on the hardwood. First, let's start with women's basketball. David, what can you tell us about Sophie Swanson, a guard from Purdue? Appears she has 2 years of eligibility left to play here for Megan Duffy in Blacksburg.
She does. I think it's a pretty good pickup. Hokies lost Lonnie White and Matilda Eck. Lonnie White's in the portal. Matilda Eck graduated on the wing. They go out and get Sophie Swanson. They've got 3 freshmen coming in, keep in mind. So with Swanson, they've got 10 scholarship players for next season, 3 freshmen, 6 returners, and then Swanson. They need front court depth. Everybody knows that. But I think this is a good backcourt piece. Whether or not they take another backcourt player, I think kind of depends on what role they envision, how big of a role they envision the freshmen having. Like Kate Sears coming in, she's a really good player. What do you envision her role being next year? But I think Swanson's a good pickup. She was injured senior year of high school, missed first 5 games of her Purdue career. She's a former Gatorade Player of the Year in Illinois as a senior in high school. She's a pretty good 3-point shooter. She led all freshmen in the entire country in 3-pointers per 40 minutes freshman year. Her numbers went a little bit down this year. Like, it was a weird situation, though, it seemed like. She started the year. She was a starter for like the first 8 to 10 games and then came off the bench for the rest of the year. She dropped 29 on Penn State in February. So I think this, very similar to Lonnie White, if you remember, she didn't really have a big role at all at Utah. And she kind of came in. Virginia Tech gave her a big role. And she was inconsistent at sometimes this year, but especially down the stretch, I thought she really found her form. So I think that's a very similar situation. And like you said, she's got 2 years of eligibility left. I think it's a pretty good pickup.
Any other additions you expect Megan Duffy to make? Any names we should be on the lookout for?
It's very, very quiet right now because during the Final Four weekend, when almost all the coaches go down to the Final Four, they have conventions and stuff. It's a dead period. So we're coming out of a dead period. We're recording this on Wednesday. The men's dead period just ended on Monday night after, right? So it's very quiet on both sides. I expect it to pick up a little bit later this week. One thing to keep in mind is that, and I posted this on the boards because I saw some people worrying. This transfer portal process takes time. Sophie Swanson on April 3rd, the earliest commitment in the transfer portal Virginia Tech's had in like the last 6 years, right? Since it became a thing. A lot of them come in mid to late April or sometime in May. Well, we're sitting here on April 9th, right? So that means this process is going to play out for another month and a half. Kids have to enter by a certain time, but they don't have to go anywhere. You're seeing players go here and there, right? Like Tanaya Latson yesterday committed to Florida State. Olivia Miles committed to TCU, right? You're seeing players go, but not everybody runs the same race. There are over 1,000 players in the portal. And just because Virginia Tech doesn't have anybody right now doesn't mean it's not going to have anybody. But I think the Swanson pickup is good because it allows the Hokies to focus now strictly on the front court. Just, hey, you got to go after, probably get two bigs, and two bigs who are experienced.
New associate head coach Chester Frazier already having an impact here. Got a 6'8" tank from West Virginia. Amani Hansberry joins Mike Young's crew. Averaged 9.8 points a game last season for the Mountaineers. I like this addition a lot.
Oh, I love it. Tech needed to improve its center, in my opinion, more than any other position, even more than guard. I mean, I've run the numbers on Tech's big men, and for a top Mike Young offense, it needs its center to be able to either shoot or pass. And this past year, Tech had two centers who couldn't do either. Now, I'm sorry, it's the truth. Just look at the numbers. Every time Petit or Wessler got the ball outside, at the top of the key, like, you didn't have to guard them because they weren't a threat to shoot the ball or to find an open shooter or an open cutter or anything like that.
And they can't put the ball on the floor.
This Hansberry kid, he shoots about 30% from three-point range, made over one three-pointer per game this past season. And I think that percentage could go up as he learns shot selection a little bit better. He's got 2 years left. But he also averaged 2.4 assists per game. Assists per 40 minutes. Virginia Tech hasn't had a big man average over 2 assists per 40 minutes since Mutz and Basili left the program. And that's part of the reason for the downturn. That's part of the reason more pressure was put on Sean Padula. And even this past year, Brandon Recksteiner and Ben Hammond. So I think he's a center who can shoot it and pass it. And also, I believe in rebound percentage, rebound rate, he was in the top 150 in both offensive and defensive rebounding. So he's a better rebounder, better shooter, better passer than the two centers Virginia Tech used this past season. I don't think at this point he's got quite the back-to-the-basket game that Petit has, but overall he's a better basketball player than those other two guys. So even if Virginia Tech didn't sign one more player in this portal period, they still have a better starting lineup than they had last year right now.
Yeah.
But they will sign other players.
Think about, how good Virginia Tech might be on the glass next year. Tyler Johnson, Toby Lowell, and Hansberry.
Much better.
Gio, I think it's a great pickup. Again, that's Chester Frazier effect. And I think Chester Frazier will probably be the biggest transfer portal addition this offseason. Chris talked about this a little bit in an article last week. He is such a good assistant coach because he's so versatile and can do so many different things. And it's not like he's just good at recruiting and just good at scouting and just good at coaching. He's kind of good at all three. And this is a guy in Amani Hansberry who followed him to Illinois originally, followed him to West Virginia, is now following him here. Got a great relationship. And Chester Frazier, Virginia Tech saw first and foremost, the kind of guys he was able to get into the program here, you're already starting to see it. And I think Hansberry's a good fit for what Mike Young wants to do. He's got 2 years left. I think he's got some versatility. So, for example, Toby Lowell's out of the game for some reason. You could potentially put him at the 4 if you wanted to play somebody else at the 5. Going to be very interesting to see who else the Hokies get to complement that group. As Chris said, probably only need about an 8-man rotation around that. So, yeah, again, similar to the women, this process is going to take a little bit of time to play out. But, if you get if the Hokies get another pickup via a Chester Frazier connection, it would not surprise me whatsoever. Again, best hire Mike Young has. Best decision Mike Young's made of the offseason was deciding to bring him back. And as Chris has said before, he tried when Mike Jones left.
Correct.
Because Mike Jones replaced
Chester Frazier
and
when
then Mike
Frazier
Jones
left.
Yeah. And he tried to bring Chester Frazier back when Mike Jones went to get a head coaching job. Or to Maryland, I guess. But yeah, anyway.
When did Chester Frazier leave Tech?
He was here for 2 years.
2 years, the first 2 years.
So he left in 2021.
So Mike Young
he basically helped recruit that team that won the ACC.
So Mike Young has been here for 6 years, and he's tried to hire Chester Frazier 3 times. And he's been successful twice.
Why did he leave the first time?
He got a job at his alma mater, Illinois, as an assistant coach.
Yeah.
He played against Virginia Tech in 2007 in the NCAA tournament. Yeah.
And for those that I don't think we actually mentioned it, but Amani Hansberry has that connection from Illinois.
He went to Illinois and then followed Frazier to West Virginia, and now is following Frazier to Virginia Tech.
So
Chester Frazier makes when you're hiring assistants, you've got scouting, you've got coaching, and you've got recruiting. And ideally, your top assistant is good at 2 of those 3 things. And the other 2 guys maybe have a big strength in 1 of those 3 things. Chester Frazier is one of those guys who's good at all 3. And he's extremely valuable to this program.
Head coach someday, probably?
Should be. Overqualified at this point.
Yeah, no doubt. All right. Well, just to wrap up on basketball, it appears Tyler Johnson, Ben Hammond, and Jaden Schutt are all going to be coming back. So essentially, they're going to continue to look to build around that with Toby Lowell.
Don't be surprised if Toby Lowell declares for the draft. And it's going to freak a lot of people out that don't understand the rules. But Justin Mutz did the same thing.
As did Keve Aluma.
You declare for the draft. You get feedback from actual NBA scouts on where to improve your game. You're probably not going to be drafted, and then you come back to school.
Right.
It's part of tons of guys do that every year. So when you read the headline, Toby Lowell declares for the NBA draft, Toby Lowell is going to be playing basketball for Virginia Tech. It just means he's going to go to some camps this summer and get feedback from NBA scouts on how he can.
Which is smart.
Sure, yeah. Smart. Absolutely. I mean, that's what Mutz did, and I remember when Chris spoke with Mutz when Mutz came on here and told us he was coming back. Mutz spoke about how valuable that was, and Aluma talked about that too. And you get to go play against guys that are going to be in the NBA next year. Maybe you're not, but you get to test yourself against some of the best college players, best NBA guys in the NBA Combine. Period. You get feedback, you figure out what you need to work on, and you get to come back. I think it's a win-win situation. So yeah, I had heard some rumblings kind of at the end of the year that he might, and it sounds like he's trending that way. Like you said, the other 3 guys have announced that they're coming back. It sounds like that's what Lowell plans on doing, but nothing official.
What's coming up on TechSideline.com editorial content this week?
I'll do a basketball transfer portal update today. That's the plan. It's not going to be as detailed as the ones I've done because it's been the dead period for the last week, so not much has happened. Like, there have been no visits or anything like that. I'll just go over the few things that have happened, and I'll go into a little more detail about Hansberry, who was absolutely my top of the board as far as big men that Virginia Tech was pursuing.
Love it.
Spring game. That'll be interesting. I'll have a depth chart projection in the week afterwards.
A, B, and C
to
teams,
the ire, drawing Shane Beamer's ire, drawing conclusions from watching practices in the spring game. So that'll be up there. Got a couple features in the works. talking to Tomas Remak and Cam Selden today. Some of those might, filter into after spring ball when that's done. And still trying to iron out a time to talk to Bayshal Tootin for the next step in this whole draft process thing. He's very busy right now on a lot of visits, so it's been tough to connect with him. And it sounds like, once we touch base, I might sort of do it like a pro day and then a draft preview into the same article and then follow up with the draft itself. So that'll be coming up soon.
They're doing top 30 visits right now.
Yeah.
Like Dorian Strong's in.
Well, actually,
you say top.
Send them to the Bills.
The Dane Brugler, the Beast draft guide at my former shop there is out, and he has, 5 Hokies projected to be drafted. Tootin, 3rd to 4th round. Peebles, 3rd to 4th round. Lane in the 4th round. Strong in the 4th round. APR in the 5th to 6th round. Those are the projections, at least.
Pretty good.
Then Felton, Jennings, undrafted free agents at this point.
Oh, I'd like.
But
to
who
play
knows?
I'd like to play last season over again.
It's a shame.
They haven't had that many guys get drafted. It's been a minute.
It's been a while.
So
When's the last
since, like,
first rounder they had?
Oh, that's first round.
Edmonds?
first rounder,
Farley?
Darisaw.
Darisaw.
Oh.
Or Farley.
Farley
Which
was
Same year.
Were they the same year? I can't remember the years.
Yeah, that's right. It was the same year. That's right.
Yeah. As for what's coming up, Gio, it's quiet. It's mostly, Chris and I talked about this yesterday. It's really just, for me, monitoring basketball recruiting right now. And of course, I'll be covering the spring game with Andy as well. So after next week, it's kind of just like, it'll just be recruiting and then baseball, softball. And both those teams are playing well. Sam Mostow had a really good story on after you talked with Breepack yesterday about her historic day. And who knows, man? Both of those teams could have bright postseasons.
Absolutely.
2018 was the last time they had more than 4 players selected in the draft. So, and that was the year where they had the Edmonds brothers, Tim Settle, Wyatt Teller, Greg Stroman. Pretty good defensive guys there, and in the trenches. A little bit better result from the season than it was this previous year, though.
Sure. Yep. Sure. All right, I think that wraps things up for us. For Nick behind the scenes, for David, for Andy, for Chris, I'm Giovanni. Enjoy the spring weekend in Blacksburg, and we'll talk to you next time.